All right, so we are live and I see the audience coming in. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on the time zone you're dialing in from. If you are able to hear me clearly in the chat, let us know the city and the country you're dialing in from. It's always good for us to know where our audience is coming from. I'll do introductions shortly, but in the meanwhile, through the chat window, let us know the city and the country you're dialing in from. Okay, I don't see any responses yet, so I'm going to check if the audience is able to hear me. In case you're able to hear me, just let us know the city and the country you're dialing in from. Perfect. I see the responses coming in. I see Pavni from Dehradun, India. I see Rahat from Toronto, Canada. I see Risika from Delhi, India, Chennai, India as well, Pradyuman. Welcome, everyone. Keep those responses coming in. I know Zoom takes a moment to install or start for a lot of people, so I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to join in before I do our introductions. In the meanwhile, keep those responses coming. So I see Akash from Hyderabad, India, Pavni from Delhi, India, Aditi from Mumbai, uh, Shrishti. Okay, I see Pavni mentioning her city multiple times. Welcome, Pavni. Thank you for being here. I see Vibhavri from Mumbai as well. Is anyone dialing in from outside of India? I also want to see if there's anyone from outside of India. So in case you are dialing in from outside of India, let us know the city and the country you are dialing in from. Welcome, Vanshika from Chandigarh, India. Great, keep those responses coming in. I see Chirian from Ahmedabad. Great, keep those responses coming in. I just want to take a moment for everyone to connect before we kickstart this session. In the meanwhile, I'm going to do a brief introduction for myself. My name is Sanjay Dhingra. I'm one of the co-founders and the Chief Operating Officer at Seed Global Education. Those of you who don't know us or who haven't interacted with Seed before this masterclass, we are a firm that specializes in facilitating such interactions. We work with some of the top B schools in North America, Europe, and Asia, facilitating such masterclasses and other interactions, either through in-person events or through online masterclasses like these for top candidates from Asia, Middle East, and Africa to interact with these top schools. Besides facilitating these interactions, we also run a very large scholarships fund, thanks to commitment from a lot of our partner schools. Our scholarships fund is currently worth over $6 billion with commitments of over 25 plus schools, over 150 scholarships available through those, and even St. John's University, which is our partner universities for today's session, is a participant in that scholarships fund, committing 3 exclusive 100% scholarships for their various programs. These are for their Masters in Enterprise Risk Management, which is what the focus of today's session is as well. It also covers their MS in Actuarial Science, their MS in Risk Management and Risk Analytics programs as well. So in case you are looking to apply to any of these scholarships, I will post a link to the scholarships in the chat shortly. So stay with us and we will share more such insights with you. I also see Nash from Sudan, Harshita, Ketan from Delhi, Arnav from Jammu Kashmir, and other people dialing in. Welcome once more. With that, let me kickstart today's session. Before I introduce our speakers, what I want to do first is run our first poll for the evening or for today's session. You'll see the poll going live on your screen shortly. I would encourage all of you to respond to that poll. It would be great to see your understanding on why companies struggle with managing risk effectively. If you are aspiring to be a management graduate in the future, you want to study a master's in business management or master's in any of the domains or an MBA as well, it is important to understand how organizations manage risk effectively. And if you have any insights on why do many companies struggle in managing that risk, let us know your insight or your opinion on this. The options being lack of awareness of potential risk, or is this because they're reacting too late? Is this that they have limited resources or budgets, or they don't have a structured risk management process? So these are the options. Whichever you think is the best option, select that, and we will share the results of this poll on the screen very shortly. I'm going to keep the poll open for another few seconds. So if you haven't responded, please do so. It would be great to see your insight on this aspect. All right, with that, let's stop this poll and look at the results very quickly. Okay, so the most common reason, according to many of you, is that they don't have a structured risk management process. So that's why organizations struggle in managing risk effectively. Very often, it is also the second most selected option is the lack of awareness of potential risk. That is also very common. It's not always possible to anticipate what's happening in various parts of the world and contain or manage the risk effectively. In some cases, it's the lack of resources or budgets, and in some cases that they react too late. My personal opinion on this is going to be different. but I am going to bring in our expert speaker at this point to tell us more about risk management. Our speaker for today's session is Dr. Paul Walker. I'm hosting him for the third time over the last 3 years. I've listened to his session before, and trust me, it's one of the most interesting and exciting sessions that I've attended in a very long time. He's a leading scholar and practitioner in the enterprise risk management domain at St. John's University Peter J. Tobin College of Business. He also holds the Zurich Chair in Risk Management and is a professor in the Morris R. Greenberg School of Risk Management, Insurance, and Actuarial Science. His educational background includes a PhD in accounting from the University of Colorado at Boulder and a BBA from University of Texas at Arlington. He is also a certified public accountant and a member of major professional bodies like AICPA, IMA, and others. He's also the executive director for the Center of Excellence in Enterprise Risk Management at St. John's, and he's designed the first ERM course academically and has provided ERM training to executives and boards across the world. Once we hear from Dr. Walker, we will also hear from Amber Steger, who's the Director of Graduate Admissions at St. John's, to tell us more about the various programs that St. John's has. One thing which I want to communicate to our audience before I hand over the mic to Dr. Walker is that by attending this session, you have become eligible for an exclusive application fee waiver from St. John's. So, of course, make the most of it if you're looking to apply to St. John's Peter J. Tobin School of Business for the 2026 intakes. You have also become eligible for the 3 exclusive 100% scholarships that they have committed to the Seed Scholarships Fund. And of course, we'll get amazing insights from this session. With that, over to you, Dr. Walker. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Sanjay, for inviting me to speak. Thank you, Amber and the team there. I appreciate this opportunity. I want to start off by saying buenos dias, guten morgen, buongiorno, and from Manhattan, New York, from the East Coast, I want to say good morning or hello, as we like to also say in the US of A. So it's great to be with you. I'm going to talk today about managing risk in uncertain times, from chaos to clarity. You are taking a class from Paul Walker. Vin Diesel is not going to be here, but you're going to get Paul Walker instead. No matter which language I greet you in today, I want to focus on another language that maybe we don't speak enough, and that's just Latin. And there's a Latin word called ibid. And some of you, if you've been to college already, you say, oh, I remember that, because before I used to use ChatGPT to help me write papers, I used to have to use ibid in my footnotes. And ibid is Latin, and it means on the same page. It's important in life, it's important in families, and it's certainly important when you're trying to run an organization. And in a world where there seems to be a lot of chaos and uncertainty around there, getting your organization on the same page, getting ibid, is extremely important. So we're going to talk briefly today about how you do that, how you get an organization on the same page. And Sanjay, we got part of the answer in the survey that you answered. And so I appreciate you teeing that up and showing us a little bit of the survey results. So let me get started. I want to make the sort of suggestion this morning that the world is chaotic. I like to think that we're living in a fat-tailed world, and some of you that have studied statistics know exactly what I'm talking about. What I mean by that is there are more and more sort of rare events that seem to be happening. We think they're once in 100-year events, but they seem to happen every 10, 15, 20 years. And they're not just more events, but bigger events. Let me just give you a couple examples of what I call a fat-tailed world. You have from Cambridge University some data where they tried to study stock market crashes not around the world, but in the US and the UK stock market. And you can see the US ones on the left and the UK ones on the right. And they try to look at, you can see the numbers kind of right down there in the middle on the left. These are anywhere from 0 to up to 80% swings. They call it peak to trough swings in the stock market. Same thing in the British stock market on the right. And then they show you basically crashes greater than 10% seem to happen about every 16 years. And you can also see in the UK stock market, it's the same thing. And so I would say, well, when did we have the last big stock market crash? At least in the US, we had it. Well, we had 2000, then we had 2007 and 8, and then we had COVID. And the data tell us that we're probably going to have another one in the next couple of years. I hope it's not today. I hope it's not before I retire. I hope it's not after I retire. But I know it's going to happen because the data suggests that there is historic financial volatility in the market. We would like to manage it out. It would be great if we could manage it out. I think there's a way for governments to do some of that, but it seems to be a pattern. There's also volatility and uncertainty in economic forecasting. And you can see the headline from this article of a couple of years ago where a lot of economists said, I give up. It's almost impossible to predict some of these things. So we have historic financial volatility in the markets. We have the economists saying it's really difficult to predict things going forward because there's so much uncertainty. And then I don't know if you've seen this or not, it's absolutely fascinating. Right before 2001 and 9/11 and what happened in the United States, we had the Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense for the President of the United States, sent a memo. And the memo was about changes in the world. And you can see it's kind of shocking what the memo said. It said, if you were Great Britain in 1900, you're looking at your enemy, France. 10 years later, you're working with France to fight Germany. By 1920, you've got World War I. By 1930, there's an arms race, a naval arms race, and you're saying no more war for at least 10 more years. Well, 9 years later, you get another war. And then by 1950, you've got the atomic age. And 10 years later, you got the missile gap. And then by 1970, the US is in Vietnam. By 80, the Soviets are in Afghanistan. By 1990, the Soviet Union is about to break up. And you can see this, the sentence at the very end, where basically the Secretary of Defense is telling of the USA is telling the president, I don't think we can predict anything. So I'm trying to make an argument with you this morning that there's uncertainty in the market. There's uncertainty in predicting economics with numbers, and there's uncertainty geopolitically as well. And Frank Knight, who lived a long time ago, was a very famous economist, not as famous as Keynes and some of his competitors of the time, but over 100 years ago, he basically said, you can't predict. It's very difficult to predict in the world. Now, Frank Knight lived during World War I, what he knew as the Great War. And his view of the world was, we just all tried to kill each other. Who thinks that we can predict anything? I hope we're not in that situation today, but some days I feel that way, that the world is still very, very uncertain. But I have some modern data from you just from last night from a survey I'm doing with a bunch of chief risk officers in corporations around the world. And look what they're saying. Geopolitical risk. I asked them, to what extent is each of the following risks growing and impacting your risk profile? And the big ones are geopolitical is still there. Economic risk, whether it's tariff or government uncertainty, is still there as well. Operational risk, environment and climate has shifted down a little bit. Societal risk, whether it's immigration or human rights, is there. But then way up there as well as technological risk. So you see the big ones, executives today are trying to manage corporations around the world. And they're saying, wow, geopolitical, economic, and technological are really making me nervous. What's driving some of this is not just changes in government or human behavior, but notice that since 2000 on the right-hand side, some people are arguing that we've gone from an industrial age in the world to an information age to a digital age. And if you just look at some of the green and the blue things on the right, what has really happened in the last 10 years or so is we've had a lot of dramatic digital things happen, whether it's platform models or artificial intelligence or smartphones or potential autonomous vehicles, et cetera, or the cloud. We've had so many things happen at once that it's created an age of where there's going to be a lot of disruption. People will look at this and go, oh my gosh, this is going to change so many things. It's harder to see when a lot of little things happen and build into one big change, but I think it's clearly happened. And how does it show up? It shows up in news headlines. On the far left, you see a traditional company like Coca-Cola saying, wow, we've got to get beyond just selling soft drinks. We got to figure this out. On the bottom left-hand side, you see Bill Ford from Ford Motor Cars saying, well, we can't just sell more cars. We have to rethink our entire strategy at Ford. Even Netflix is defending their strategy about culture and what they're trying to do. And traditional clothing retailers in the middle are saying, man, I just didn't get what was going to happen and how tech was going to change the retail market. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And in Wall Street in Manhattan, we even see the hedge fund and the money guys telling businesses, you better disrupt yourself because disruption is happening. And we need to pay attention as companies, as governments, even as human beings, even as members of families, we need to be aware of the risk and the uncertainty and the disruption and rethink a lot of things. And then on top of all of that, we get coronavirus, which was horrible. And some people said it's going to cause a third world war. It hasn't yet. I'm very thankful for that. But it made people very uncertain and anxious. The good news of it on the top right, as you can see, was for a while pollution went down. So there was a benefit of that, but there were so many bad things. As we came through that, people started to ask the really big questions about risk again on the bottom left. As you could probably see from my worldview, I think these questions should have been asked all along. I think we're living in a fat tail world and an age of uncertainty. But the questions that came out after COVID was a lot of people that never used to talk about risk began to ask questions of, are we in a world of unknown unknowns? Well, maybe we are. And then they also begin to say, well, what else are we missing? After the pandemic, what's going to happen? Well, a lot of us have seen what's going to happen around the world. There has been a lot of changes, which is kind of scary. What is really obvious, though, is whether you're running a nonprofit, a hospital, a children's center, or whether Elon Musk and you're trying to run all his organizations, or Microsoft or IBM or Pepsi or Coca-Cola, doesn't matter. Everyone wants to know the big risk. Everyone wants to figure out what are those enterprise value killer risks that are going to drive value or destroy value. There's a little bit of offense and defense in managing your risk. Everyone wants to figure this out, and they should want to figure it out, right? They especially want to figure it out when it differentiates them from their competitors. And what I have in front of you is some data analysis that I've been doing with some of my graduate students. If you come to St. John's, we like to do research. We like to analyze and explore the world. And the data you're looking at before you is an analysis of one particular company compared to their competitors. And you can see the lighter blue line is really their competitors and the market, and the darker blue line is them. And you can see at some point around November, and it looks like, I can't remember the exact year, this was probably around the year 2015, they got in a lot of snow. That was much later than that. Anyway, the point of the data on the far right is there are these gaps where everybody else is doing well and you're not. And so the big questions become, wow, what risk did we fail to manage where everybody else's stock price is going up and yet ours is going down? In fact, going down dramatically. And so when we get visuals and data like this, it just reminds executives of it is a fat tail disruptive chaotic world, and we have to get ahead of this. We have to learn what's driving it so that we don't lose our organization, and instead we continue to gain value and our organization continues to be successful. Here's some of the bad news, though, and I need to tell a quick movie story first, right? So we like movies in the US of A, and I think a lot of you probably do as well. One of my favorite movie series is Lord of the Rings. I hope that's some of your favorites as well. And in that movie, they bring up a key business sort of risk concept. So I like to think of strategy as there's setting strategy, there's aligning strategy, and then there's execution or delivering on the strategy. So setting, what are we going to do? Where are we going to win? And then aligning, build the business model. How are we going to win, right? And then, okay, well, we got to go do it. Well, think of the first movie from the Lord of the Rings. And I'm not a total nerd where I remember every single detail and all the characters, but there's that scene where they're at the Elf's castle and they set the strategy. And the strategy is we've got to destroy the ring. So they've set the vision. They know what they're supposed to do. And then I think the dwarfs say, you have my axe, and the elf says, you have my bow. And I don't remember what Gandalf says, right? But now they're fully aligned, Ibid, right? Back there, they're on the same page. So they've set the strategy. They've got Ibid. They're fully aligned. Well, now they got to go destroy the ring. It's going to take a while. Here's some more data that just highlights how important that is. So notice what the data says. I asked a bunch of executives and leaders at organizations, is your CEO and your leadership, are they good at setting the strategy, or are they also good at actually delivering on the model or executing the strategy? And some of you figured out where I'm going with this already, because in the upper right-hand quadrant, I've only given you one number, and that number shows you that basically Only 1 in 5 executives are good at both. So some companies have leaders that are great visionaries. This is what we are to do. This is how we should win. This is our new strategy. And yet others don't have that leader. They've got a leader that's very good at, okay, show me what to make and I can make that product. I can deliver on it. Very few leaders are good at both, which just makes the risk that much more important. So when I ask executives, well, let's think about strategic risk. Are you confident? You can see that most of them say, I'm not confident. I don't understand what my strategic risks are. They're getting pressure from boards around the world. This is not just a USA thing. This is happening around the world. A lot of the pressure from Europe as well. Boards are getting pressure to question these older legacy business models. We need to question the future viability of our business. Boards are getting pressure to assess the vulnerability to disruptive risk. What are the other risks that are out there? What are we not thinking about it? You can see they're beginning to use on the bottom left scenario planning, simulation exercises, and stress testing, even on non-financial risk. We teach that in our graduate program. Boards are getting pressure to understand what are these exogenous risks that are out there. A lot of corporations around the globe are beginning to build these exogenous emerging risk models to try and figure it out. And then trigger risk. What exactly is the risk that's going to topple this corporation? Or which risk is it that we really need to watch? That's important in organizations. It's important in families as well, right? The trick is that risk is kind of complicated. So what I've thrown together on just slide is just some concepts I hear people talking about when I ask them, well, when you think of risk, what do you think of? And you could see on the big one on the left, a lot of people think, well, downside. And some people think, well, probability and probability theory. Well, those are certainly part of it. But I've written a paper, you can find it online on coso.org, about agility and about if risk is moving rapidly, then identifying risk needs to be a little bit more agile. We need to move with the business, not just be reactive. A lot of people think on the bottom left that risk is a portfolio. It absolutely is. I hear a lot of discussion today about the velocity of risk, and we need to understand how fast these things are moving. Certainly, a lot of people think about impact or uncertainty or the upside or volatility. Today, after COVID, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about robustness. How strong are we if this risk occurs? Or resiliency? What is our ability to bounce back if this risk does occur? I don't know if you know this or not, but it's absolutely fascinating to me. I don't know your theory of human beings, if you believe we evolved or you believe in religion like I do, but whichever one you believe, what we know from scientists is that if we put you in a risky situation, a part of your brain actually lights up. So it's almost like you have a risk gene built into your body, specifically into your brain, that when you encounter a risky situation, this thing comes on. So what we're trying to do in our graduate programs and our executive education is we're trying to tap into that risk because we're living in a chaotic, risky world. And we're trying to teach you what I call risk acumen. But what it really plays out into is we have a degree called enterprise risk management, as well as a lot of other degrees. I don't want to just talk about the degree that I'm involved in. But just look at the growing significance of this phrase, enterprise risk management, in the world. It has exploded from 2011, about 8 million hits if you did a Google search. If I searched on it a couple of years ago, and it was up to almost 800 million. So again, I believe we're living in a chaotic, kind of uncertain, fat-tailed world. And this concept of managing risk would agree with me in the sense that people are searching, people are looking, they're trying to figure this out. Even in the world of ERM and scholarship, I'm working with a PhD student right now out of Germany. If you want to study ERM or risk at the graduate level or the PhD level, there's a growing sense of research in this area. Notice around traditional areas, marketing and accounting was doing way more research than ERM. But you go about 8 years later, and all of a sudden, ERM research is starting to grow. People are sensing that, wow, this is important, but we don't know how to do it because enterprise risk management, it's not just accounting. It's not, it's a little finance. It's a little economics. It's a little psychology. It's a little governance. There's a lot of things involved. So you can even see on the right-hand side at the bottom that some enterprise risk research is starting to win awards for the best paper out there in certain fields. So enterprise risk management is growing, and Amber's going to talk later, but I'm just going to say these are the degrees that I'm involved with. We have an MS and an MBA in enterprise risk management, and they're online or in person. We also have a Center for Excellence in Enterprise Risk Management where we get together a bunch of executives, usually about 80, once a semester, and we talk about what's happening in their world. And that was the slide I shared with you earlier, which I'm going to share again in just a moment. You should know that whether it's ISO or COSO, what are those? There are some groups globally that have written the right way to manage risk on an enterprise level. So this is the COSO Enterprise Risk Management Framework. So we do cover the fundamentals in our program, but we cover a lot more than that. What do I mean by that? We have one entire class just on strategic risk analysis. I think it's one of the only classes like it in the world. And so we talk on the upper left-hand side about setting strategy and how do you know you've set the right strategy? We talk about you've got to build the business model in the middle. You've got to build the capability. You've got to build the value proposition, but you can't forget the culture. You can't forget that surprises are still going to happen. You can't forget that when those surprises or those risks happen, you better be strong. You better be robust. You better be able to handle some of those hits because I think it's normal. We talk about right spending. You have to continually reinforce what is right about your business and where you should be allocating resources. We talk about being resilient and managing your risk along the way. We also talk about you better know what the emerging risks are out there. You better be flexible. You better be able to pivot if things change as well. So we love to get into the strategy stuff. It's a lot of fun. And one of the reasons I like it is it gets to what I call, and I learned this from a CEO of a company, it gets to what I call what is the heart and soul of the business, right? The boom, 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 boom. What really makes that organization live and breathe and be successful, whether it's a nonprofit, a charity, or any other type of company out there. It's critical to understand what I believe are the heart and soul and the key risk. And those are not so easy to understand if you don't get trained in that area. So you've got to figure out the noise. You got to understand the business model, the value proposition, the strategic capability. Unless you know that, you don't really understand the risk. So what we do in our master's degrees, we try and train you on these concepts. And one is, do you really understand the business model? We spend a lot of time on business model risk analysis. We try and focus on that. We try and focus on your portfolio of your products. If you understand the portfolio of your products, you understand where your risk is. I would say you're beginning to understand it. This is an exercise that we do in class. We try and go through the leading strategy books, not to reteach strategy, but to say, what do they teach us about risk in an uncertain world? And this is one of my favorite ones because it talks about blue oceans, customers and industries that you haven't thought of yet, the unknown market space where there are no rules, where you can make more money. Who doesn't want to do that, right? We try and focus on, do you understand the value proposition? What are you delivering that creates value for your customers? This is an exercise we do in class. Amber may have participated in this one. I can't remember, but we spend time on, do students know how to create new business models? Because there's no better way to manage your strategic risk than by creating new business models. What a wonderful idea. So we spend some time on that. We have this great exercise in class where the students brainstorm. We figure out the new business models. We try and understand them. And you can see we like to, in the in-person thing, we like to whiteboard them and do yellow stickies as we're brainstorming so we can figure out what the new business models are. I met this one board member when I did a project on risk and risk oversight a few years ago. And she reminds us very simply, do you look for what kills you? Are you bringing in an objective view? This is a very smart woman who sits on the boards of a couple of very large companies around the world. And this is just a quote of what she shared with me. And you can see what she said. She said, look, Paul, basically the risk that kills most companies and why they only last 20 years, that she reminds me, 40 or 60% are gone after 40 years. The risk is business risk. She said, You need to understand your market. You need to have the right talent. There's only a few things that can go wrong. You were asleep and the market changed, consistent with what I said earlier. You didn't have the right people. You weren't challenging the people to look around the corner. You weren't bringing in objective information that was contrary to managed viewpoint. Wow, what a smart person, right? I think she's got the right perspective. I want her on my board. Then she reminds us it's very simple, but it's also very hard. I would say maybe it's a little bit more hard than it is a little bit simple. So what's the next big thing? You were probably wondering why I hadn't mentioned this yet. Yep, AI. And so you're just some of the headlines out there. I'll start with the upper right. Amazon CEO says Gen AI could be the largest tech transformation since the internet. Might be right. On the left-hand side, lower left-hand side, social order could collapse. Uh-oh. So now we've got people saying how negative it's going to be. Some people saying how positive it's going to be. I just want to remind you on the right-hand side, I saw this in the news yesterday, but it's impacting so many other things. Gold prices are surging. Usually when gold prices are surging, it means that people think there's a lot of uncertainty. So we've got AI as the next big thing, but we've got other signals about, wait a minute, there's uncertainty. So I hope you're beginning to see how risks are connected. People are trying to say, well, wait a minute, I got AI, I've got geopolitical, I've got other things. All these risks need to be managed in an integrated, holistic, sophisticated way. You can't manage just one risk. And some of you were wondering about that slide earlier, perhaps. So I showed you this slide, but I left off the AI part. Look at what the executives are saying on the bottom. AI is one of the biggest concerns they have right now. Yes, geopolitical is up at the top. Yes, economic risk, operational risk, uh, but AI is the one that's making them the most nervous right now. I have a little bit of data on that one. You can tell we like to do a lot of research and stay connected at St. John's. I ask a lot of risk executives, well, what do you think? And they say, well, I think I'm a little behind. That's not good news if you think you're behind, but a lot of companies feel like they're trying to catch up on AI. And do we have the capabilities? Remember what I said earlier. You got to set the vision. Then you got to build the business model and capabilities. Then you got to go do it, right? Well, let's look at what they're saying. Only 47% even have a vision. So what are people doing? Just buying chips or logging onto ChatGPT or Copilot with no vision, no plan? That's not the best way to be successful. Only 42% have the technical core capabilities. So they don't have the right people. They don't have the right skills. Maybe they're learning prompts in ChatGPT. That is nowhere near enough. Only 27% have tried to change the culture. Got to change the culture. Only 24% have tried to integrated risk into their AI efforts. So we've got to get better. The capabilities are lacking. We've got to focus on the heart and soul, focus on the skill set, and link it back to our business model. And I'll go back to boards because they're the ones feeling the pressure. And I ask them, what are you concerned about? And you can see right in the middle what they're saying is it's AI. We're really concerned about AI. How's it going to change my company? How's it going to change my competition? How's it going to change the way we operate as well? What we try to do in our classes is we try and say, we don't have every answer. We think we know what the risks are. We think we know the risk profile is changing. What we try and focus on is we try and make you valuable. We try and make you valuable by teaching you a skill set and a tool set. And you can see on this slide, this is just an example of a lot of the different skills and tools that we specifically cover in the enterprise risk management degree and some of the others. So we want to make you valuable. We want to give you a tool set and a skill set. And I just want to summarize it up this way. There are a lot of theories of success out there, right? If you walk into any bookstore, if we still have bookstores, we do in the US. I hope you do in your country as well, because I like to go sit in bookstores and read. But there are a lot of books about your personal life, about self-help. There are a lot of books about how to be successful in business. And I call those theories of success: Good to Great, The Blue Ocean, Playing to Win. You name your favorite best-selling strategy book out there. There's a bunch of them. There are a lot of books also that are out there about theories of failure. Don't run out of money. That's a big one. Drucker's written a lot of stuff, especially the one on the theory of the business. Clayton Christensen, former professor at Harvard, wrote The Innovator's Dilemma. Still one of the best books out there on why companies fail. So there are theories of success and theories of failure. But if you're paying attention to me this morning on the East Coast in the US, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, but there's another one. And the other theory of failure is failing to manage and identify the risk. If we don't do that in a chaotic, disruptive world, then we're probably going to fail or at least lose a lot of value. And I will stop there and turn it back over to you, Sanjay.
Sorry, I'm being unable to turn on my video. I'm just going to try fix that up. Just give me 1 second. All right, now it should work. Thank you, Dr. Walker. This was extremely insightful. And each time I listen to your presentation, I learn something new and something interesting.
Thank you.
It's always relevant, especially as an entrepreneur. We face with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of risk as well. There can policies around visas can change, some restrictions may come in and distort our complete engagement and business as well. So I want to segue into the audience question, and I'm just gonna fix something for. Sorry, I'm just gonna figure out how to allow you to turn on your video as well. But just give me 1 second. If
Would you like for me to stop sharing the slides or leave them on?
you can leave them on, that's all right. Uh, Amber, I made you host, so this should allow you to turn on your video as well. So, Dr. Walker, what I wanted to get into a couple of questions around this. One was, how does one manage such risk, right? The risks are uncertain. There are quite a few risks. Of course, AI is what is bothering a lot of CEOs, but there are other risks, geopolitical uncertainties, regulations coming in. And as young students who are attending or aspirants who are attending this session, how do they approach this entire thought process of looking at risk and then managing it?
Well, the way you approach it is you have to build an enterprise risk management approach, and the board has to build a risk oversight approach. And then there are a lot of steps in that approach, and they can't be haphazard. It can't be random. It can't be too informal. It has to be sophisticated. You have to make a really strong effort to try to identify your risk. I have some data, but it's not on a slide, but it's very recent data from one of the largest tech companies in the world. And I asked about 500 employees there, have you missed a risk in the last year? And shockingly, about 70% said, yeah, we've actually missed one. I call them an oops, things we don't like to have happen. So you can't be haphazard about your risk identification approach. It's got to be sophisticated. You've got to use a lot of sources. You got to make sure that you know what your risks are, because you can't make progress until you know what your risks are.
Makes sense. Uh, I want to encourage your audience to ask more questions. Pavni, your question about the Indian stock market. I'm not sure if Dr. Walker can address that, but Dr. Walker, if you're a betting man, do you invest in the stock markets, and how do you look at risk in the stock market?
So that's it. That's a great question because it's completely relevant, right? Where do you think the risk is? Where do you think it isn't? Traditionally, people have been taught sort of a portfolio approach to the stock market. So I still believe in that, but I would say you need to think about not just stocks and bonds or US or non-US stocks for this country versus that country, but you want to think about a lot of things. Some people try to build portfolios today, inflation, no inflation. Some people build portfolios today, tariffs, no tariffs, AI, no AI. So I think it applies to everything in the stock market. In fact, I cover a little bit in our introductory class about how hedge funds guys think about risk. Specifically, there's Warren Buffett and then there's the Oak Tree one. They have some great knowledge that they share about how they think about risk when they're trying to make some of their investment decisions. So it's the same concept. It just is slightly applied differently. So I love the question. I hope you come join one of our classes.
And I'm sure you beat the enticers on your returns with that risk management approach. So, to the audience, in case this is what you're looking for, I would highly recommend looking at Dr. Walker's class. And of course, for that, you should apply to St. John's University, Peter J. Tobin School of Business, and take up his course on Masters in Enterprise Risk Management. Uh, what I want to do, Dr. Walker, I'm sure the audience would have more questions for you coming in. I want to encourage the audience to ask their questions in the Q&A box. But at this point, I also want to invite Amber to come in and tell us about the various programs that St. John's Tobin School has, which these aspirants can consider applying to and possibly come and study with you. So with that, Amber, we'd love to see your presentation and know more about the programs that St. John's offers.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me, everybody, and thank you for the wonderful presentation, Dr. Walker. As he alluded to, I am also a proud alumni of the MSERM program. So of the 65 programs that we offer here at St. John's University, I am slightly biased in that the MSERM is one that I know a little bit about and has a special place in my heart. I'm always open to questions from students, but particularly those who are interested in this degree. I love chatting with because it completely expanded my mind and the way that I think about things. And I use the tools and tips and thought processes that we discussed in class every single day in higher education. And we have alum who are working for the MTA, which is the New York City Transit Authority. We have alum with the FBI, with Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. I know that Dr. Walker could name a few more as well, but it really goes to show how diverse the industry is and how applicable this field is to these theories and this topic is to every field. So I'm going to talk a little bit very quickly about the programs within our business school. This is the front picture was on the front of our campus on the Queens campus. Some of the highlights of our degree programs within the Peter J. Tobin College of Business are that we have small class sizes. So our faculty to student ratio is about 15:1. We just hit over 200,000 living alumni. About 80% of which are living within the New York City area. And so that's important because they're involved in our career fair activities, in recruiting and hiring St. John's alums and offering them internship experience because they know that they have faith in the St. John's education. They know how strong our education is and they go straight to hiring our current St. John's students. We have more than 30 years of double accreditation with AACSB, which is the top accreditation for business schools in the US. And our actual science and risk management graduate programs are ranked in the top 5. For graduate programs, we are in the top 10 for undergraduate programs, and Business Insider recently named us as the #1 program who are graduating out students within this field. So within the Tobin College of Business, we have the Greenberg School of Risk Management, Insurance, and Actuarial Science, which we call GSRM. GSRM has a lot of international recognition and accolades, which you can read about on the screen. Essentially, GSRM used to be the College of Insurance, which was founded in 1901. So we are part of one of the longest running insurance and risk management schools within the country. And Dr. Walker and I believe that we were the first school in the country to have any sort of degree on enterprise risk management. And to his point earlier, it's something that we didn't hear often at recruitment events within the last 10 years. It's really exploded. And before, students would be at events and I would bring up enterprise risk management to them and they had never heard of it. And now I have candidates coming up to the table and saying, I heard that you have the program to beat for enterprise risk management. So it really has evolved as more companies realize how important it is. But just wanted to highlight that since Dr. Walker talked about it. So we have 3 different modalities where students can study. We have our main campus in Queens, which is your typical 105-acre campus that you're used to seeing in movies. It's one city block. There are residence halls, a bunch of academic buildings, you know, all that you would expect to see for a college campus. And then in Manhattan, we have our Manhattan campus, which is down in the East Village, which is a vibrant area of New York City. It's close to NYU, to Cooper Union. There's a lot of students in the area, and it's very close to Wall Street. So pretty much every week we have experts coming in to speak with our undergraduate and graduate students. A lot of them are alum. And then we also offer online programming. So this year, with some changes in the visa process that I'm sure many of you are aware of, we had a few students who were ready to join this fall, but unfortunately couldn't get their visa in time. So we we pivoted and they were able to start the program online with the hopes of them joining us in the spring. So really the thing to highlight here is the flexibility and our willingness to, work with you should any of the volatility and changes that are happening right now affect your ability to come to New York. Sorry, my slides. Okay. In terms of the application requirement, this is the link to go ahead and apply. Because you participated in the webinar today, we will be waiving your application fee. And after your application, we do require one letter of recommendation, your resume, an essay explaining your professional goals and why you're applying to the program, and transcripts from all of the institutions you've attended after secondary school. We do require TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, or PTE for students who aren't on our exempt list. And we require a course-by-course NECES foreign transcript evaluation. If you get all of the documents in other than the TOEFL, IELTS, and Duolingo, and you have not yet taken that exam, we will provide you with a Duolingo waiver so that you won't need to pay for that exam. GRE and GMAT are optional. If you have scored well, so I would say about a 600 or higher on the GMAT and a 315 or higher on the GRE, we do encourage you to submit that, as it can only enhance your application and improve your chances for scholarship opportunities as well. So within the Tobin College of Business, we have 3 different types of degrees. We have our MBA, which includes the STEM MBA, we have the MS, and we have advanced certificates. For our traditional MBA, this is a 36 credit program where 12 of the courses are, 9 of the 12 courses are your core classes that everyone in the MBA takes, and the remaining courses make up your concentrations, the 18 of which are available here. And you can see enterprise risk management and risk management are highlighted because those are the 2 MBA concentrations within GSRM. We also have the STEM MBA, so particularly of interest to international students. This is a 45 credit MBA where you pick 2 of the concentrations that are displayed right now, of which ERM is also an option. And then that is a STEM designated degree, which will help extend your eligibility for CPT and OPT. We also have 10 MS degrees, Master of Science degrees. And so the way that I like to explain these to students is, if you have experience in an industry and you know that you want to continue in that industry, or you know exactly what you want to study, the MSs are more of a deep dive into one subject area, whereas the MBAs are a broad overview of business with a few courses in a subject area. But my team and I are very well versed in the differences between the degrees and which may be best for you. So that's a great opportunity to touch base with us if you're not sure on which may fit with your career goals. These are advanced certificates as well. Most international students prefer the MS or the MBA, but we always like to mention that these are a little bit shorter, 15 to 18 credits, also accredited by ASCSB, and a nice way to get your foot in the door and add to your credentials if you're looking for a more short-term option. This is our current tuition. In terms of credit, it's $15.75 per credit, and like I said, the MBA is 36 credits. MS is 30, along with the technology and university fees that are required each semester. I do add this with a grain of salt, though, because everyone who is accepted into GSRM is considered for academic scholarships. And the majority of students coming into GSRM receive awards of at least $5,000. We also have, as you can see in the financial support section, assistantships, dean scholarships. We have a promise scholarship, which is for those who are studying actuarial science. If you pass at least exam P and another SOA exam before you join us, you are eligible for a $40,000 tuition award. And then the Alati Fellowship, which is for the MS and ERM, and the MS in Risk Management, which is a full tuition award. So lots of different financial aid and scholarship options, particularly within GSRM. And then we also have a lot of resources for students, both online and on campus, in terms of career opportunities, internships, shadowing students who are in the field, lecture series, CEO seminars. The career office really does their best to ensure that you are getting every opportunity possible to enhance your resume, get experience, see what the role is like out there in the real world, and do as much as you can to ensure that you get as much experience as possible. All right, and this is our contact information. Both of the websites listed here will have information specifically to the business school or the School of Risk Management, as well as our phone number and the general email address. If you have any questions, I'll also put my email address in the box. You can email me directly, but for now, we'll go ahead and take any additional questions.
Great. Thanks, Amber. Thanks for that. And I want to bring Dr. Walker back into the conversation as well.
Thank you.
Dr. Walker, just a quick check if you're also able to turn on your video if you want to. I think there was some issue with the settings, so just want to confirm you're being able to
Yeah,
do that now.
it's actually not letting me turn on the video. I don't know why, but hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you, and I'm going to give you host access for a minute so that you can turn on your video as well. Great. So see some uncertainty and some issues with the tech all the time. It does happen. So Dr. Walker, we do have some questions coming in, and hopefully you would be able to turn on your video now. Awesome, great. There are a lot of questions, Amber, some for you and some for Dr. Walker. Dr. Walker, if it's okay, I want to take up a few with you first.
Okay.
There's a question which has come up from Chirham Amin, who's asking about risk management, risk assessment frameworks or standards that you find most robust and why.
So the question is about a risk management, risk assessment framework. And what was the second part of that?
So assessment frameworks or standards that you find most robust. So which ones do you find most accurate compared to the others?
Oh my gosh. I think if very quickly, it would probably be the ISO 31010. I can go into that in more detail if they want to contact me, but I think that's probably the best one out there. So ISO has a couple of standards. They have a risk management standard, 31,000. Then they have 31010, which is a risk assessment standard, and it's really good.
Great. Thank you for that insight. Chirhan, I hope this helps you. Dr. Walker, the next question which I see come up, this is from Rajnita Chaudhary. I'm assuming she's dialing in from India. Her question is that she wants to work in emerging markets like India or Southeast Asia. And again, which are the most relevant risk management frameworks compared to those, or relevant frameworks in this part of the world compared to those used in the United States. So I'm not sure if it's something different or addressable, but in case you want to touch upon this.
Yeah, and what were the countries again, locations she was interested in?
She's interested in Southeast Asia, so India and countries around here.
Okay. Yeah, so the most dominant enterprise risk management frameworks in the world are COSO. You can find that at coso.org, COSO, and ISO. Some countries have written their own risk framework, but not many. But I'll give you one example. About 2 years ago, I worked with some very high-level executives in India, and we wrote a risk framework just for India businesses. So there's a few countries like India that have written their own framework, but most businesses or organizations around the world use either the COSO or the ISO framework. But it's not unusual, again, for some to write their own framework.
Interesting. So I do have a similar question, and this is from Bhavya, and Bhavya is evaluating a finance-related course, so she does want to study finance and wants to understand how's studying risk management different compared to studying traditional finance or accounting programs.
Well, the good news is that the finance organizations understand financial risk and they understand enterprise risk. And so there are certain finance training that now includes enterprise risk management in it. So that's why I get some finance students that take my enterprise risk management classes. So for example, our first intro ERM class that we have an agreement with GARP, the Global Association of Risk Professionals, that it sort of matches some of their training. So if you want to go take their certificate, it does. I have other students that say, well, I want to go do the CFA exam. Well, there is some enterprise risk management built into that exam. Even the actuarials have a ERM module, I think they call it, as part of their training and their exam process. So there's a natural blend, as I'm sure the student knows, this has to be in finance, and it is. And I'm not in charge of those associations that issue the exams and control the body of knowledge. But I'm glad to see that they've incorporated some enterprise risk management thought process and concept into their basic exam. So it is a natural blend. And by the way, banks around the world are required by law to do enterprise risk management. So if you want to study it and finance, it's a very good mix.
Super. Uh, Amber, I want to bring you in for a couple of questions. I know there are a lot more questions which have come up for Dr. Walker, but I want to answer some questions around admissions and criteria before I come back to those. So this question is coming from Ayantika Chakraborty, who's trying to understand the emerging career pathways for MBA graduates. So if I can expand a little more and talk about it more broadly. So if you want to touch upon how's the US job market looking like currently over the last 1-2 over the past 1-2 years and what the anticipation is, and how are the career services at St. John's preparing to help its MBA or master's graduates crack those emerging opportunities in the market?
Sure,
Good
that's a great
question,
question. So our MBA is very broad, as I said before. So because we have the 18 different concentrations, there's so many different fields and ways that students can take advantage of that degree, and then so many opportunities of different industries for them to go into. So certainly I can, touch base with our career advisors to see for specific concentrations if you're interested in where those alumni have been placed. But I'll also add to the chat some of our outcome data for the MBA of where they've been placed most recently. We're at about a 92% placement rate for grad students, which means that within 6 months of graduation, they have employment or are studying a terminal degree. And 97% of that placement is within the field that they're hoping to be in. A lot of that, I think, is because of our alumni network that I talked about before. Within GSRM, we have 2 dedicated career advisors who help specifically GSRM students with resume building, interview prep. We just had the career fair 2 days ago on Tuesday, which was hundreds of people walking around the Manhattan campus. And then again, taking advantage of all the opportunities. So within our career portal that's open to all students, there are mock interviews you can take and then get feedback from both AI and your career advisor. They'll help update your resume. You can sign up for virtual internships that are 4 to 40 hours long to enhance your resume and get a feel for different industries. You can take personality exams and job placement tests for what may be a good fit for you, in addition to connecting with alums who may be from India or Nigeria that have gotten a degree with us and then move back home. So lots of different opportunities, lots of connection, and always my biggest advice is to take advantage of all the opportunities, particularly if you're applying to a graduate program, because it's a much quicker time frame than your undergraduate degree.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Amber. Urva, I hope this answers your question as well. So I'm going to mark the careers questions, most of them answered. If you have more such questions around career opportunities, pathways, I would recommend connecting with the St. John's team post this session separately. I'm sure the employment report statistics are available online, available on the website, so do check those out. But for follow-on questions, I would recommend reaching out to the school directly as well. I do want to take up some questions around scholarships, which are available through St. John's. And I see a number of people have asked about those. So Vanita, your question, same way. Dushima, your question around scholarships. So we did touch upon this briefly earlier. The school does have a number of merit scholarships, I understand. And Amber, you did touch upon the graduate assistantships and other pathways to fund their program. What I also want to remind the audience is that St. John's is a participant in the Seed Scholarships Fund. It's a $6 million. It's a $6 million plus fund as of now, with commitment from a lot of top schools, including St. John's Peter J. Dobbins School of Business. They have committed 3 exclusive scholarships, which can cover up to 100% of your tuition fee. Of course, these are competitive. There is, you need to you need to have a strong profile, make a great application to the school to secure one of those scholarships. But what I'm going to do is post the link to the scholarship again in the chat. In case you're looking to apply to the scholarship, please check out that link. All the details for applying are listed on that particular scholarships page. Those of you who are asking for recording of this session's recording is going to be available on Seed's YouTube channel by tomorrow. So in case you missed certain part or Amber's presentation where she spoke about funding, scholarships, eligibility of programs, and so on and so forth, you can access that recording by tomorrow. You'll also get it or a WhatsApp message from us from Seed Global Education by tomorrow. So keep that link handy, and you can always check out the content again to see through all the details which were covered. I do want to come back to a couple of questions to you, Dr. Walker. I know we are on the clock, but if you have 5-7 more minutes, are you okay taking a few more questions?
I do have another appointment, but I have a few more minutes, so go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm
I
going to
love
take
the
up
questions.
one.
It's great. And thank you
Okay,
to the students that they're asking.
No worries. So I'm going to take up one question, and this is from Fatima Noor. She's very focused on the program, and she wants to understand about the tools or technologies that students are exposed to when they study risk at St. John's. To use data analytics or any simulation tools in the classroom?
I don't think I fully understand the question. So she wants to understand the full exposure of risk, the circle of risk,
No, just the tools. So there are common tools or platforms that you
the
use
tools
in the classroom for teaching.
Well, the ones I put up there were about 50 that were on there. But let me emphasize, so let me just talk about a couple of those briefly. So um, um, I really like the business model one that I showed you, where we try and understand the heart and soul of the business. And since Amber's graduated, there's some new developments in that area. In the US specifically, it's probably going to go to other parts of the world. And people are starting to use the phrase mission critical risk. So it's kind of the same thing as what I've been teaching for a few years, but mission critical. But I recently, in fact, this week, I asked a bunch of risk executives, what's the number one skill set that you think you need? And they actually mentioned some of the ones that are on that what I showed. So for example, one of the answers I got this week was scenario analysis. I have to have the ability to understand the future and the various scenarios and what are the risks in those scenarios. And then they work with the executives to develop a business model playbook about if that world happens or that world happens, what are the risks and then what's the playbook. So that's becoming a very valuable skill set. Now, I'll just throw in AI because it's everywhere, right? So AI might help me identify some potential scenarios or drivers, but AI can't help you figure out, okay, in that scenario, what are the risks in that scenario to my specific business model? And so the skill set and the talent of using AI, trying to think about, okay, I understand what I do, but here's the future. What are the risks? How do we react, excuse me, as an organization? It's really important to get ahead of these risks. We don't like to see them too late. And so, and as Amber and I know personally, we wish the leadership at our university would do this because it's such a valuable thing to get ahead of these things and to be prepared before they happen. Because once they happen, now you're on your back foot, so to speak, trying to catch up. And that's just not the right way to run a business.
Thank you for that. This is extremely insightful and helpful. I know there are a lot more audience questions which have come in, but I don't think we have time to answer all those questions. So my sincere request to all our audiences that if you have more questions, do reach out to the school. We always encourage that. I'm sure Dr. Walker loves addressing such questions and wants to share more. But in the interest of time, I would encourage you to connect with Amber's team at St. John's to see if there's possibility for you to attend some upcoming masterclasses or get more insights onto the program through the admissions office as well. Amber, there have been more questions around scholarships and application fee waivers. What we are going to do is our team is going to try addressing some of those, but we will also encourage these people to reach out to your team for more details as we go along. Those of you who missed this earlier, since you attended the session, you are eligible for an application fee waiver to the programs at St. John's, so do make the most of those. Amber's presentation also did touch upon the various scholarships and funding options. So of course, the 3 exclusive scholarships that they have with the Seed Scholarships Fund, that is one thing. But besides that, they have more merit scholarships and other avenues to fund your studies. that those were covered in Amber's presentation. The details would be available in the recording of this session, which is going to be on Seats YouTube channel tomorrow. So please do check that out as well. And if you have any questions around those, feel free to reach out to our team as well. Our team is happy to address those questions and eventually connect you to Amber's team for further clarification and details. With that, I do want to take everyone's permission to wrap up this session. I know we are 5 minutes over time, but thank you, Amber, for doing this session and getting Dr. Walker to do this session with us. And thank you, Dr. Walker, for doing this interaction. It's been superb and very insightful. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Wish
Thanks,
everyone
everybody.
a great day ahead. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Ciao.